Hello guys and welcome back to another prediction. This time I will talk about the possible box office performance of the 8th Fast and Furious installment, The Fate of the Furious. As always, I will start to talk about a point which works in favor for a good box office performance of the movie. The last Fast and Furious installment, Furious 7, was a box office phenomenon back in 2015. The movie grossed over $1.5 billion worldwide, with $353 million in the domestic market and $1.163 billion in overseas territories. With that, Furious 7 was the 5th biggest movie in the domestic market of 2015 and the 3rd biggest movie worldwide of 2015. The overseas gross of Furious 7 is still the 3rd biggest overseas gross of all time. Just Titanic and Avatar grossed more, so this is an unbelievable performance of Furious 7. Even The Force Awakens grossed less in overseas territories. From the 4th installment on, every single Fast and Furious movie outgrossed its predecessor. This is such an incredible feat to accomplish. Right now, I don't know of any other film series which accomplished that. So it's very fair to say that there is a huge and great box office history behind The Fate of the Furious. The next thing I want to name is a huge potential that The Fate of the Furious has in China. We all know that China is by far the second most important market in the world right now. Furious 7 grossed an unbelievable $390.9 million there. Until today, this is still by far the most successful American movie there, outpacing Transformers Age of Extinction, Zootopia, Warcraft and Avengers Age of Ultron. Just Monster Hunt and this year's The Mermaid were more successful. Because of the already expanded movie market of China, The Fate of the Furious has even more room to perform great there, and all signs are looking good. The next thing I want to name is the release schedule of The Fate of the Furious. When the 8th installment of this franchise gets released on April 14th, there's no other movie to compete against it, and even on the 2nd, 3rd and 4th weekend of the Fate of the Furious run, there is basically no competition to the movie. On the 5th weekend of the Fate of the Furious run, there will be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 to hit cinemas. But after over 20 days of performing with nearly no competition, this competition from Guardians 2 really isn't important at all. The last thing which works in favor for a good box office performance of the movie is the director F. Gary Gray. This guy is the director behind 2015's surprise hit Straight Outta Compton. With that being said, it should be obvious to all of you that the Fast and Furious franchise is in really good hands right now. Now to just one point which works not in favor for the box office performance of The Fate of the Furious. We all know about the very tragedy death of Paul Walker back in 2013. While it was a very sad thing, it of course helped the box office performance of Furious 7. This, of course, is not the situation for The Fate of the Furious. So this point will push the box office potential of the movie down for sure. Alright guys, I will now fade in all aspects that I just counted for a good or bad box office performance of The Fate of the Furious, and I will now start with a pessimistic prediction on the movie. Let's say F. Gary Gray is not delivering when it comes to the quality of the movie, and the 8th installment out of the Fast and Furious franchise receives mediocre reactions from critics and audiences all over the planet. I can see a gross which will land somewhere above the box office gross of Fast and Furious 6, but way behind Furious 7. In this scenario, The Fate of the Furious will open with $126 million and after a multiplier of 2.3 will finish its domestic performance with $289.8 million in total. On the overseas front, due to a still very good performance in China, the movie will collect a total of $780 million for a combined worldwide total of $1.069.8 billion worldwide. With this gross, The Fate of the Furious will be the second highest grossing movie out of the Fast and Furious franchise, and while it's around $450 million behind its predecessor with this gross, it would still be a big box office hit for Universal. Let's move on to the realistic prediction. Let's say F. Gary Gray comes close to the quality of Furious 7, and most critics and audiences around the planet are pleased with the final product. I can see The Fate of the Furious to enter the top 10 highest grossing movies of all time in this scenario. The Fate of the Furious would open with $145 million, just slightly below to what Furious 7 opened back in 2015. And after a multiplier of 2.4, it would finish with $348 million in the domestic market, due to way better performances in overseas territories. The movie would collect a total of $900 million overseas, for a combined worldwide total of $1.248 billion worldwide. With this gross, The Fate of the Furious would outgross Iron Man 3 and take the 10th spot on the list of the highest grossing movies of all time worldwide. The domestic performance would sit just $5 million behind the franchise record of Furious 7, and the franchise record would be in reach in the optimistic prediction. Speaking of that, let's continue with the optimistic scenario. Let's say F. Gary Gray shatters expectations and the quality of The Fate of the Furious is above all installments which were released so far. I can see the movie to come very close to the performance of Furious 7. In this scenario, The Fate of the Furious would open with $155 million, setting a new franchise record and on par with the opening weekend of Rogue One: A Star Wars Story. After a multiplier of 2.5, The Fate of the Furious would settle with a total of $387.5 million, taking the franchise closer and closer to the still very rare 400 million plus club in the domestic market. On the overseas front, The Fate of the Furious will overcome the 1 billion barrier, but not the 1.1 billion barrier, and will finish with $1.065 billion from overseas territories. Combined, The Fate of the Furious will settle with a total of $1.452.5 billion worldwide. With that, we would get a new record holder when it comes to the opening weekend and the performance in the domestic market for the Fast and Furious franchise, but The Fate of the Furious would still take second place behind Furious 7 when it comes to the overseas performance and the worldwide total. Nevertheless, this scenario would be absolutely phenomenal for Universal and this movie franchise, and don't forget that with this gross, The Fate of the Furious would sit on 7th place when it comes to the highest grossing movies of all time. I have to admit that I can be very wrong with this prediction, and the 8 installments out of the Fast and Furious franchise kicks Furious 7's butt and grosses over $1.6 billion worldwide, but we will be able to see more accurate things in a few months. You can choose the next video topic, which will be either a prediction about Blade Runner 2049, XXX, The Return of Xander Cage, or Baywatch. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I really hope you liked it. If so, be sure to hit the like button and leave a comment, since it would really help out this channel big time. Also, when you like what I do here on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to this channel so you always get news when a new video is out. See you soon. Bye bye.